After the pandemic, I saw a lot of native New Yorkers talking about how something's changed with New York City and they don't know what it is, but it feels terrible and they can't quite put their finger on what it is. And you know, people always point to transplants and it does have to do with transplants, but not in the way that you might think, right? And this video isn't meant to be offensive or, punching down on transplants or anything like that. But I'm going to call attention to something that if you are a transplant might make you extremely uncomfortable because you're going to feel very seen and because it's going to be very direct. And what I've learned, and that's what this video is about, what I've learned is that a lot of people who come to New York from other places are not used to direct communication. And so they take it as an attack, as hostility. And it makes them feel shame. It makes them feel very confused. They don't understand what's going on. And so a lot of times they're going to have to label you because of that, right? And that's not to say that New Yorkers aren't aggressive. Yeah, we can definitely be aggressive. But a lot of times the way we communicate, we're just getting to the point, we're just spitting it out because we come from working class backgrounds and cultures that are very direct. The Northeast is just, it's like, listen, in the ER, people have to be direct. You can't walk on eggshells, right? New York is like the ER of America. Consider it that way. So we just get to the point, right? And personally, for me, I feel like being direct, being straightforward is the most respectful thing that people could do. And I value that with people when they communicate with me. And I've had people tell me in the past that they were kind of shocked by the fact that when they told me something very directly, there was no bad intention behind it, that I took it so well. And it's because it's such a relief to just know exactly what it is that you mean. And I don't have to guess. And you're telling me one thing and I know that you're not telling me that I hate that. And so that's New York. New York is very direct, all right? What has happened with the transplants that are coming to New York City right now is that the majority of them engage in very passive communication. And the reason for that is because a lot of them are coming from upper middle class and lower upper class backgrounds where that is the dominant way of communicating. Very passive, very coded, very, signals and not saying things outright. And then their cultures consider direct communication to be very low class, very rude, very, like what people have said to me, rough around the edges, rude, aggressive, hostile, like that. Those are the things people have said to me to try to put me in my place where I'm just like, that doesn't bother me at all. Like, and then it drives them nuts and it doesn't bother me. But I started to notice this when I started doing showings years ago when I started renting apartments because I'd be alone in apartments with young women. I call these women dollar store Regina Georges, right? And they would do a body check, and it still happens all the time, by the way, especially in the summer. I'll be walking down the street and someone will pass me in the street and be like, and it's not just white women, so this isn't about race, because a lot of people of color engage in this crap too, okay? Black women, no. Black women, I think black women know not to, they know not to, they don't do that. I think there's a little bit of a difference, even though they do sometimes have that mentality too of being kind of like, if they're upper class, like they'll look at you like you're whatever, but they don't really engage in that, okay? But people of color do this as well, okay? But anyway, I remember when that first started happening, I was like, what is that? Like, what was that? Was she trying to intimidate me? And it would make me giggle because I found it funny because, in New York, intimidation is very direct. And if you want to understand exactly what I mean, read 50 Cent's book because he talks about this. He talks about how he had to get used to the fact that in the hood, threats were very direct. And in the boardroom, it was smile in your face and stab you in the back, right? So the discomfort that a lot of people are feeling is that you're meeting people either in work or, customers or whatever in different settings, and they seem so friendly, but there's a quiet hostility behind it. There's throwing rocks and hiding their hands. There are coded insults and comments that are meant to put you in your place. And if you don't know how to read the signals, you're going to be confused. You're going to feel it instinctually, but you're not going to be able to decipher what they're saying. And so you're going to walk away from those situations feeling like, what's wrong? Like, what is happening? And they also sometimes look at you like they're examining a specimen or some kind of curiosity, right? So I think there are so many more people coming into New York that are like that. And they're trying to, instead of blend into the culture of New York and get used to more direct communication and find the value in that, they are trying to impose their ways on New York City. And it feels gross. Because that's the only word I can use. It feels gross. Personally, and obviously it's not all transplants, right? I think a lot of people do come here and they pick up on that because that's something that I heard transplants talking about in the 90s. Like, oh my God, like I was blown away by how direct people are, right? And it was uncomfortable and I had to get used to it. And then they got used to it and then they enjoyed it and then they appreciated it and they found the value in it, right? And I think, you know, it could be said for both ways. Like, we could definitely learn to be more polite as New Yorkers, and find moments where we're more, you know, slow it down, be nicer, that kind of thing. But at the same time, we don't want New York to turn into that, because if you're going to turn it into that, just stay where you are. Like, we don't need that. One of the most beautiful things about New York is that we are so direct. Okay. So yeah, I don't know how many people this is going to resonate with. I think it's going to explain a lot to a lot of native New Yorkers, especially if you're someone who has come from, you know, working class or lower class backgrounds, and you've moved into spaces where you're dealing with more mixed social classes, or maybe like upper classes or middle classes. But yeah, that's the deal. Because the thing is that in New York, even the people who are upper class often are direct. Maybe not as direct as people, you know, as people who are working class, but they are often very direct. And so it's just a different vibe, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good, because it's, you know, it's dealing in obscurity and vagueness, and it feels, I think, to a lot of us who understand what's going on, it just feels very cowardly, like very like, just stand up, like say it with your chest, like stand 10 toes down. I can respect that so much better. Like, it just feels very like wussy, like and that's not what New York is, you know. And also, like, really, dollar store Regina George behaviors to try to intimidate people. Like, do you know how insecure that makes you look? Stop it, stop it.